and welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel. My guest this week is actor Joel de la Fuente. I first discovered Joel, like many of you, as Lieutenant Paul Wang from Space Above and Beyond. The Fox show only lasted one season, criminally underrated, canceled way before its time. It recently celebrated its 30th anniversary, developed a cult status. Joel talks about the show. He also talks about how the Wildcards became a family on and off screen, the show's cancellation, how he found out about it, and about what happened to his character. He played Ruben Morales on Law & Order's SVU, a recurring character who had one of the highest episode counts. He also talks about how his Morgan Freeman impersonation, yes, Morgan Freeman, got him a job. Dr. Price on Hemlock Grove. We discussed that and how that role as Dr. Price kind of transformed his career into these unique characters. Played Inspector Kido on Amazon Prime's The Man in the High Castle, and he had to learn how to speak with a Japanese accent. And of all people, Daniel Day-Lewis helped him out with the dialect. Not with Japanese, just with working with dialect in general. Most recently, he was on The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. He voiced General Lane in My Adventures with Superman. And he's been on a ton of guest starring roles on a lot of network television. Really enjoyed my conversation with Joel, and if you did, please leave a review and rate the show. I would really appreciate it. Here's my conversation with Joel. So Joel, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and very happy to see you in your Wild Cards t-shirt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, we'll start there because I hate to phrase a show that was ahead of it, ahead of the times and stuff like that, and canceled too soon. But both of those apply to Space Above and Beyond. One of the best shows I feel Fox at that time had on the air. Glenn Morgan and James Wan, who did X-Files and stuff like that. And it was a fantastic show. And I feel like Battlestar Galactica, the remake, kind of took a lot of things from Space Above and Beyond. Just talk, it's now we're 30 years ago. It's crazy. It's celebrating the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the legacy of the show before we kind of get into Lieutenant Wang a little
Well, I
bit.
think that it's just I think that there's never any guarantee for anything in this business. And to have had the good fortune to be on anything, and something that has any kind of legacy is just, it's special because the longer you're around, you see how hard it is to get anything produced at all. And then how hard it is to tell a story, the story that you want to make. And then very often, the story that you want to make changes and then becomes something better. And then sometimes it ends up lasting longer than you ever could hope for it to last. And that's, in the case of Space, I mean, I think that for me personally, I sort of feel that the reach of that show always surprises me. Always, like I always run into people who remember the show and really remember it fondly, and that always means so much because you can never expect such a thing to happen. So to have been a part of that is just a real privilege, I think. But it's not anything you can't plan for something like that, and you certainly
Right.
can't expect something like that. So I just have a lot of gratitude for that time. Although we had no idea. I mean, we were all sort of fighting for our lives
Mm.
to a certain degree because nobody had that kind of experience before. I mean, Glenn and Jim, who are wonderful writers, and were quite experienced at the time, they'd never run their own show, and I think
Right.
that at that particular time too, it was a much different ballgame than it is even now. Just that 3/4 networks at the time, the amount of control that the networks had. I don't, I think that was a constant. That was a constant conflict with our show, and then everyone that was involved with the show, all the series regulars, it was all of our first times being a series regular,
Right.
and so, and then we were shooting in a different part of the world for a while, and so I think that for all of us, the learning curve was really steep,
Mm.
and we were becoming very close very quickly and making a lot of mistakes very quickly and trying to figure things out very quickly. So it was just a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind that unfolded over like, I guess 2.5 years of our lives.
Yeah. So basically, you were like the wild cards on set, and then off set,
Yeah,
going through the motions, learning each other and going through the mistakes and everything like that,
yeah.
becoming a family. So that's kind of interesting. And I feel like with the Fox network, and it was kind of like an alternative at that point to like the big three, and they had kind of cater to a younger audience and stuff like that. And they had some innovative shows, and they kind of took some risks. But I feel like then the network kind of kicked in, and it's like no ratings, we're going to cancel a lot of shows. And I kind of feel like Space was in that ballpark where if they kind of given it a little more of an opportunity, it kind of would have gotten a wider audience, I felt.
That's the big what if with the show
Yeah.
is, I do feel that, I mean, timing is everything,
Right.
with all these things. And in this case, it's so notable because I think the timing was so close that I think maybe 6 months to a year. Like if the show goes 6 months longer, if the show runs one more year, like if the show had a second season, it probably would have run 7 or 8 seasons. Like
Right.
it was just that it was that close in terms of finding its audience, and then just the whole battle to find its audience. I feel like that's its own story, that the people that watch the show really love the show and they talk about it
Yeah.
even now. But it was hard for people to find the show. It was Sundays at 7.
Mhm.
Football was constantly preempting it.
Right.
It had very sort of mixed support at the network. Like, some people that really, really supported it, that allowed it to get made, and then some people who really didn't support it. And so it was constantly getting moved around. Uh, and as you said, a lot of the themes of the show really resonated with lots and lots and lots of people, because when a show like Battlestar Galactica came along years later, a lot of those themes really, really resonated with people. People called it the most innovative show on TV. It was a huge sleeper hit and brought a lot of attention, not just to them, which was very well deserved. I mean, Battlestar Galactica on its own, I mean, they deserve all the credit. They
Right.
made a great, great show. And but it brought a lot of attention to Sci-Fi Channel. It brought a lot of attention to alternative ways of watching television. So, you know, Galactica is really important for that reason too. Also,
Yeah.
they featured a cast that, so many of them were in Canada. So many of them were
Yeah.
Canadian actors in Vancouver. And so that was huge too. It was like, look at all these great actors that are everywhere. It sort of was a beginning of a seed that began to grow, that's been growing over the last few decades, just sort of the growth of this industry. It's not just 3 networks or 4 networks. It's all of
Yeah.
these places. It's not just Hollywood. It's Canada. I mean,
Yeah.
Vancouver produces more stuff than
Right.
any place now. So
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, everyone's leaving LA,
yeah.
it's too expensive. And I'll throw another what if. Had there been more cable original programming or streaming, do you think Space would have originated there or kind of moved after being canceled by Fox?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's a fun thing to think about.
Yeah.
I think part of the origins of Space were, it was designed to be a huge network hit. I mean, the people that were behind it too. Like when you like the pilot is very different from the rest of the series. The
Right.
pilot is sort of, this is all my opinion, but the pilot was sort of like a Trojan horse. Like Glenn and Jim are such interesting
Mm.
humans because they were very commercially successful, and yet very mainstream. But they had the mindset of, they're punk rockers, like they're intellectuals.
Yeah.
And they're socially engaged critical thinkers. And so they don't necessarily have the mentality of, their aesthetic is not commercial blockbusters, although they cut their teeth and grew up in, the X-Files and,
Right.
21 Jump Street and things like that. And so they were conversant and successful in that arena. But at their hearts, when they got their own show, they wanted to make a show that Space eventually developed into over the course of that first season. I mean, that was Glenn and Jim. And so, um, I think that the network gave them the opportunity because they were, to them, they were just this, they were a commercial ticket, a ticket to commercial success. And I think the space pilot is very much that way. It's like these huge broad strokes of like every big blockbuster thing you've ever seen to get on the air. And then they got
Right.
on the air, and then it was just constant fighting with the network because Glenn and Jim's vision really started to come out. They started to discover more and more what they wanted to do, what they could do. So could it have found another home? I think so, because when you're talking about a world, like when you're talking about like the world today, when there's, well, not today, when you're talking about the world maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, the growing streaming world, that's a world where you don't need you don't need 15 million people. Like when space
Right.
was happening, you needed 25 million people to be a hit,
Yeah.
right? And up. You know, when streaming was sort of in its heyday, in this particular heyday, like you needed thousands of people. It just depended. It's like
Yeah.
thousands of people could keep you on the air because they were looking to feed certain audiences, right? So if it found the right channel, like I think it would have, like in 2 years or something, it could have lived on Sci-Fi Channel.
Right.
It could have lived there.
Yeah. I mean, because when the streaming first started, I remember like Netflix, everyone would just sent back the discs. They had the yellow, the red envelope, and that was Netflix. You sent back a movie, and that was what. And then I think it was a Littlehammer was like one of the first shows and stuff
Hmm.
like. And it was kind of like frowned upon. It was kind of that's not a good idea, to be on a streaming site. Now all the big stars are on there, and it's not like a full 22 episode season. They do like the
Yeah.
events, things with like 6 episodes, 8 episodes to draw, the higher stars. So it's a whole new world. It really is.
I mean, I think they created a new world, and that new world is now being pulled back into the way things were before. It's sort of like,
Right.
like Netflix started this whole situation, this revolution by saying, it's Hollywood's not perfect. It's flawed. It's broken. We're going to fix it. And they poured all of this money into it. And for a while, it was sort of like a playground for all these creative people, and people who never had expression before suddenly were having expression. And I think that period of time from roughly like 2013 to like the pandemic, that was such a creatively, it was such an interesting time. I mean, flawed, sure, sort of like the Wild
Yeah.
West, but there were so many people creating. There was so much money being poured into it, without a whole lot of oversight, and so there was a lot of things that were unsuccessful. But it was such a creative explosion. Everyone was flocking to this place, and now I feel like these same people, having destroyed Hollywood, like having destroyed these tried and true mechanisms, are now going, they're stepping into the graves of these old studios and saying, well, we need commercials again.
Right.
Well, we're just going to hire stars. And you know what? We're shrinking our budgets. Now that we've eradicated all the competition, we're contracting now. Now that we have distribution all over the planet and we control that distribution, now we're going to start instigating basically a lot of the same limiting, conservative, non-creative forms of control to make money. And now the primary goal is to make money. And
Right.
listen, you have to make money to do all this stuff, but Hollywood has always been a place for mavericks and a place for creatives, and
Yeah.
and that's the part that's really getting lost now. Like the people that are running these studios, they're parts of multinational corporations that value more than anything the bottom line. And so you're looking at people who are running these places, and they're not creative at all. They have they don't even like movies. Do you know what I mean? They
Right.
don't even like TV shows. They're
Yeah.
just looking at numbers, and they continue to destroy all these things that came before. It's an interesting, um, it's an interesting contraction, like, and I'm curious to see where this goes, because as this happens, also there's the growth of AI. There's the promises that are being made about AI, the money that can be made, the
Yeah.
money that can be saved. Uh, then it's sort of marketed to creatives as, we're actually giving you tools so that everybody can create things. Like the gatekeepers are gone, but really what they're doing is they're destroying any power that creative people have, professional creatives, so that they can do things for cheaper, and put forth creative projects that aren't really the best kind of creation, like creative projects that
Mhm.
there could be.
Yeah. Are you like worried about AI?
Sure. I mean, I think everybody should be worried about
Yeah,
AI,
I
frankly. I
agree.
mean,
Yeah.
I think that we need to be cautious. There needs to be a cautious element in this conversation because right now there isn't any because people have so much money involved in this. I mean, the people that control this conversation are the biggest companies in the world, the
Yeah.
biggest
Right.
multi-billion dollar companies in the world, and they're pouring billions of dollars in, and right now they're making very little money out. So they have a lot invested in keeping this going, and there's a lot of promises being made and a lot of conjecture, um, and we'll see what the reality is. But when that reality evolves, we need to have been cautious too at the time and trying to protect ourselves to a certain degree. You can't stop innovation. Innovation is
Right.
important, but it's also inevitable. You can't stop the innovation, but you can't let the people that have all of the money dictate this because they're just trying to make more money.
Exactly.
They're not trying to protect people. They're not trying to
Mm.
create the best thing. They're trying to make the most money.
Yeah. They're not trying to better the world for everybody, just themselves, it seems
No.
like.
Yeah, and these are tools that could really have a tremendous positive effect on people, and it will,
Yeah. Right.
but just how to make it have more positive impact. It's sort of like make a few billion less and help everybody a little bit more. Like make your
Mhm.
billion, sure,
Right.
make your millions, but if you can't even spend a billion, like then why don't we help other people? Why don't we help the industry that you're going to dominate?
Yeah.
This industry that is giving you the money to improve. Why put that in two or three people's pockets when instead you can improve the whole industry and enrich the people that help make it? Sure, they'll be rich enough; they won't be able to spend their money, you know, over eternity. They can
Yeah.
still have that much money while everybody else can also benefit. Like that's the balance I think we're trying to walk. I think.
Yeah. And like one of the biggest misconceptions is like every actor is rich. And every actor makes, and it's simply not true. It's maybe a fraction
Yeah,
of the industry. And it's like people just don't understand that. A working actor, they just don't make one movie a year. They have to, you know, get the gig. They're always at the hustle, trying
yeah.
to get the next job. They're all freelancers.
Well, one of the great things about your podcast is, if you just scroll through the guests that you've had over the years, you, your interest and your passion, you focus pretty squarely on the kind of artist, the working class actor,
Right.
the journey man or woman performer, someone who has made a living doing what they love over a period of time, which is a real achievement because it's really hard. But that is a certain class of, like you might not know what their name is, or you might know one
Mm.
thing that they've done, but you saw them do it when they'd been in the business for 25 years before they did
Right.
that thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that is a class of artist, like a class of performer that's really getting squeezed out these days, like in lieu of sort of what we're talking about with the growth of the industry. It's sort of like, and it's not unique to the entertainment industry. You could just
Yeah.
talk about it in terms of like our culture. Like if you look at professional sports, for example, there's never there's never been more money in sports than there is now. I
Of
mean,
course.
they're
Yeah.
pouring money into college sports, like I mean, just like college athletes are making money.
It's
But what
ruining
happens
it. Yeah.
is you need whatever. It's like, on a baseball team, you have a 40-man roster, you have all this other stuff. There's 100 players that are making like 90% of the money, right?
Yeah.
And then there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of
Mm.
players and staff and coaches and all the rest that are making as little money as the league can get away with. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? And that's it's not a sustainable model, because the people who rise to the top in terms of money makers, like our Hollywood stars, our star athletes, they're there for a reason. I mean, they are tremendously gifted. They are tremendously talented. They're tremendously lucky.
Mm.
They're tremendously hardworking, often.
Yeah.
but they are the products of an entire system. And I think that, you know, we need to acknowledge and reward the entire system, like just that you need to keep it at least enough to keep it healthy so it can continue to produce the athletes people love the most, or the stars that people are the most beloved, that, but you have to keep the whole thing healthy, or it's sort of like, you're sort of looking, you're tending a garden, and you have a favorite flower, and so you put all of your attention and your nutrients and you give
Yeah.
all of it to the flower. First of all, the entire garden is going to die, and then you can't grow those flowers anymore.
Right.
There's nothing. And then also, if you put too much onto that flower, you get sort of, the flower becomes sort of like like an overfed, gross,
Yeah.
overgrown thing, that doesn't
Right.
resemble itself anymore. And that's sort of what's happened. We're sort of out of proportion. Like, how to maintain the proportion.
Yeah. Right. Now look at baseball for an example, like the Dodgers. They're signing every player known to man.
Yeah.
And two players they just signed are making more than six teams' payrolls, combined. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't fault the Dodgers. They're playing within the rules until there's a work stoppage next year, and
Right.
the rules have to change, and they should. Like I'm a Yankee fan, and I don't, cry poverty or feel bad for the Yankees because they spend money too, but it's just not sustainable for the whole league, and I feel bad for Pittsburgh Pirate fans or
Oh my gosh, yeah. Poor
Tampa
Pittsburgh.
Bay Ray fans or anything like
Hmm.
that. I mean, the fans, I mean, the owners have a ton of money, they just don't want to spend it. You know,
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean,
yeah,
again, it's like, take care of the garden, right? It's like,
exactly, exactly.
you know.
So, but Lieutenant Paul Wang,
Mhm.
which immediately loved the character when I first saw him in the pilot. And I have to ask because it cracked me up the basic training when you get off the bus and Arlie Ermy is there and everyone knows him. One of probably the most typecast actors ever.
Yeah.
I think he came out of the womb screaming with a big hat on and stuff like that. How many takes did you have to go through for him yelling at you? Did you crack up at all? Because
Oh gosh. I didn't crack up.
okay, good,
But
good for you then.
um, because it was a little bit scary. I mean,
Right.
Arlie Ermy, like, Full Metal Jacket, he's terrifying,
Yeah.
and
Right.
David Nutter, the director of the pilot, was keeping him away from us.
Okay.
So, because the truth is, he could not have been a nicer guy. Like,
Yeah.
like a nice man, like kind seeming man, but
Yeah.
you know, capable. I mean, he was that too, and that's the part that they wanted exposed to us, the young actors. So they also
Yeah.
kept James away from us too,
Okay.
McQueen. So they
Right.
were off playing golf together, and we were in, doing
Yeah.
basic
Basic
training, and
training.
we
Right.
were bonding together. And so
Yeah.
um, so I was nervous. I mean, because also I didn't have much to do in the pilot. That's really what I had to do in the pilot, was get
Yeah.
yelled at by Arlie Ermy. So I had a lot riding on that scene. So I was nervous, and I'm nervous of Lee Ermy, and I want to do a good job. And it's the only thing, it's the thing that I have. It's like it's a 2 hour pilot.
Yeah.
That's my big moment. Um, so yeah, I was nervous, and it wasn't hard to be terrified.
Yeah.
And then,
Right. When the pilot aired, did you guys already know that you were getting picked up?
oh, that's a great question. I don't remember.
Okay.
I actually don't remember, but there just was a lot of. I feel like back then there was just a lot of waiting. There was a lot of waiting
Yeah.
because shooting in Australia too. It's like there were just delays everywhere. It's like we were so, because it was so far away then, like,
Right.
because there was no internet really, and so they were having to send the dailies all the way to, they would call it pouching, which is
Okay.
overnighting a whole bunch of stuff. And so in the end, like, the money that they were saving by shooting in Australia, they ended up shooting the series in Los Angeles, because the money they were saving, they weren't really saving, because
Yeah.
they were losing time and the cost of shipping stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah. And every planet looked the same at that point.
right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Um, and I have to add, this was kind of ironic. I think it was maybe the third or fourth episode when you guys were talking about why they're called chigs and whatnot. And you said, I think they should be called walkers. So is it ironic that you end up on a show like years later that the villains are technically walkers?
It's a great question. I've never even thought of that. It is funny. I mean, you know, Noel, if you hang around long enough, crazy stuff happens.
Yeah.
You know, like just, I really do think that's the name of the game. The name of the game is take care of yourself enough, work hard enough, and just hang in there, and something will happen. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
and you hang around long enough, and then the chigs become walkers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and being a baseball fan, they always say like, you hit 300, you make it into the Hall of Fame. So, is your like success rate on auditions about 30% or is it lower, higher? What do you
Oh
think?
gosh, that's also a great question. It can't possibly be 30%. I mean, it's much lower. I mean, I think that I mean, although I mean, honestly, truth be told, I don't audition that much. I mean,
Okay.
and that's not because I'm being offered. I mean, I do get offered stuff now,
Yeah.
but I've never auditioned as much as most of the people that I know when we talk about this stuff. And a lot of that is, uh, a lot of that too is like selectiveness. Like, when your representatives know you well enough to know that there's no way you're going to get cast for
Mm.
this. There's no way you're going to
Yeah.
get cast for that. You have a really good shot at this, or we got you this great opportunity that's a real long shot. But like and also what you want to do. And so to not waste your time really like too much, but to
Yeah.
put you within the realistic realm of what you can get. Uh, I've always felt that I don't really audition all that much. And at times that has been a source of tremendous panic. Uh, but when things are going well, I don't really think about it too much.
Yeah.
But I know that I have to take seriously whatever crosses my path. But um, they say that, being a professional, the difference between being an actor
Mm.
and being a professional actor is a professional actor really is
Mm.
just someone who spends 90% of their time trying to find work. And if
Right.
you're lucky, 10% of your time you're spent, doing the acting part. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, if you're lucky, because at any given time, members of the union, I think it's 99% unemployment. And it's probably higher
Mm.
if such
Yeah.
a thing could be like these days. Like the last couple of years since our strike, have
Yeah.
been really, really hard for our members. So
Right. The times that you have auditioned, has it been in person or is it because of the pandemic now you put everything on tape or you do like a Zoom
mostly on
interview?
tape,
Yeah.
mostly on tape. I mean, next week I have my first in-person audition for a play. I can't even remember the last time I auditioned for a play
Wow.
with other with in live in a room, like, and that's, I'm excited and I'm nervous about it. But
Yeah.
most of my stuff since like 2012 has been on
Yeah.
tape, and that's even before the pandemic when things got
Wow.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I think some of that too is just because once you put cameras on phones, it became possible to do that. And then for some reason, I mean, I might have I definitely have a higher batting average going on tape than I
Right.
do in the room. So,
Yeah. Do you think it's kind of like a double-edged sword because you can do so many takes, when you are at home and then you send in the finished product, but then if you get the role and you're there and you just, freeze up and they realize maybe they hired the wrong person?
uh, I'm not so worried about that part.
Right.
I think once you, I think a tape, I think a tape and an audition, it's a completely different, it's a completely different thing than the
Right.
job.
Okay.
And I think that my my ability to do good work on auditions increased when I started to treat them as its separate own thing. Like a really good friend of mine that I went to acting school with has said that he thinks of auditions as the only time he'll have where he knows he can definitely play this part. So he treats the audition like a performance in and of
Yeah.
itself, like a process in and of itself. And also it changes the way it's like if you're working, like if I'm working on space, then my approach, I'm running a marathon. Like if I want to be seen and cast in space, I've got to run a sprint. Like I've got to hit hard, big, and as many colors as I can in a way that serves the project within 2 or 3 minutes. Like I need to play what I think will be the last episode somewhere in that 2 minutes. I need to play Wang's, maybe the best potential moment for him, the lowest. Like I need, and in a way that is also of service to the scene at hand, because you're really trying to show them I'm the person for this part, not like everything in the scene is there's two things that happen in the scene. So hopefully I'll do both just like you wrote it. Everyone is going to do that. Like everyone is. And so you need to try to show them more. You need to try to stand out more. You need to be more vivid. You need to give them ideas on who he could be. That's tricky, but that's also much separate than working on the actual project. Like when you're working on the actual project, you are absolutely of service to that. On the audition, it's funny because you are of service. You're showing them that you can be of service to their project, but you need to be of service to yourself as a professional actor who's looking for work. I am serving myself by showing you, here's my take on it. Here's all the different things I could do with it, in as vivid a way as I can show you. And that's different than how you prepare for the actual role.
Right. Were Glenn and James, were they open to like your suggestions about Paul's character?
Um, I wouldn't put it that way. I would put it in the way they were always paying attention. Like, they didn't say, "Hey, what do you think about this character?"
Right.
They would say, "Hey, I heard you're a Chicago Cubs fan. I'm a San Diego Padres fan." And we talk about it and then we would relax and talk as friends
Yeah.
for 20 minutes. And then you'd go away and then you'd come back and there'd be a scene about Wang loving the Cubs, right? So they were always on the lookout to sort of synthesize and see how you could be of use. They didn't want you to show them. They didn't want you to be like, "Hey, I have an idea. I could do this, because we all tried that too as actors,
Right.
as young actors. We were like, "Hey, I have a great idea."
Yeah.
Like I was like, "Hey, Wang doesn't do much here. So what about this, this, and this?" And they were like, "Oh, great. Thanks for submitting that."
Thanks. Yeah.
And then, they were going to do what they had to do. So, but they definitely paid attention, and they were definitely looking to us for a lot of things. But like true punk rockers, they didn't like to be told what to do.
Of
So,
course. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would say at least one episode you had a Chicago sports reference, so it was good. Either
Always.
there. Yeah. The Bears, and it was good. And my apologies for the Bears. Yeah.
Oh, don't apologize. They had a great, great season. It was a great,
Totally. Yeah.
listen, so much fun. Sad, but
Yeah.
they thrilled the entire city. The city is still buzzing from them. So,
No, I'm sure. Yeah. My oldest son's a Rams fan, so
yeah.
yeah. So he
My
had a good,
condolences to your
yeah,
son.
exactly. I'm a Jets fan, so yeah. There's no hope for
My
me.
ultimate condolences for you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I always joke that the year after I die is when they're going to win the Super Bowl. So I told my oldest just to go to the cemetery, just put the iPad or whatever futuristic device they have on the tombstone, and just put up a chair and watch it with me.
You ever see like that happen for when the Cubs won the World Series? So
Yeah.
many people at cemeteries,
Yeah.
like bringing
Right.
hats and things like
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
it's funny, like it was against the Indians too. So it couldn't have been any more perfect. The two
Yeah.
teams with, the most futility.
Game
And
7, extra
game
innings.
seven, extra innings, and they had, what was it, the power outage, I believe, right? It was yeah.
Rain. It was
The
rain.
rain,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like no one wanted them to win either. But yeah, it was fantastic. So you grew up in Chicago?
I grew up in Evanston. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's great.
Which is
Yeah.
just outside. And I went to school in Winnetka, Illinois, which is on the North Shore of Chicago. So, yeah.
Okay.
I was just
Yeah.
there last week, actually.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I've been there a few times for business, and I love the city. It's fantastic. And
Great city. Great
yeah,
people.
yeah, totally. So when did you find out, A, the show was being canceled, and B, that you were going to go down in a blaze of glory?
Oh gosh, well, I found out that that I died when I was watching the freaking show on TV with James Morrison at
Oh,
James's
wow.
house. We were watching the last episode, and the ship exploded. The way that the way
Huh.
that the script was written was there were so many cliffhangers in it. It was like,
Right.
you see Wang is like shooting at the fighter, and the fighter's
Yeah.
flying towards him and cuts away. We're going to resolve it. Uh, um, Lanai and Kristen, it's like their thing is going to crash on the planet, and you see them go under, and
Yeah.
uh, and they had found out, or Glenn and Jim had either found it explicitly, or they knew the writing was on the wall that they weren't getting picked up, and so in post they thought, we're
Yeah.
taking them all out in a blaze of glory. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And so, you know, they inserted that shot where Wang blows up. They edited the scene between, like, there's a scene there between McQueen, James Morrison,
Yeah.
and the people that are around him, including Tucker. But basically, where they're like, the words were such that we've got a search party looking for, Vanson and Danvers,
Yeah.
and they just cut it all up until basically it was strongly implied. He's
Didn't
just
make
shaking
it.
his head.
Yeah.
So, so that's how I found out, and
Oh wow.
it sucked. That was
Yeah.
that was a crappy way to find out that you died. I mean, it was like watching a close friend of yours, uh, something terrible happened to them.
Yeah.
And I was sort of depressed about it for a long time. And then I have a specific memory of, I was in my apartment in New York. I got a call. It was from James Wang, and he said, it's not going forward. It definitely felt like
Yeah.
James had a bunch of those calls to make. And so it was like, there's no way to have a good conversation that way,
Yeah.
but it was brief, to the point, short, and you just sort of left holding it for a while. It wasn't a huge surprise by then, but you're sort of
Right.
holding out hope, and then you
Yeah.
get that phone call. And yeah, so after like however many years of, you go to Australia and you meet all these people, you get really close. Then in my case, I moved to Los Angeles and spent all this time with everybody. We worked really hard on that show. And we all worked a lot because we were all in the shot all the time.
Mm.
I don't think I've ever worked on a show that logged more hours. I mean, I made
Wow.
so much money on overtime on that show and on forced
Right.
calls, because I seriously made maybe 50% more on top of my paycheck on overtime. I mean,
Wow.
that's how much. I mean, we were working. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I think we averaged 15-hour days on that show, like over the course of a season. Like, that's
Right.
no joke. Like, you're like, when when I've seen the show over the years, like, you look at us at the beginning and you look at us at the end, and it looks like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the 58th has been through war. I'm like,
War.
yeah, we
Yeah.
look like crap. You know what I mean? We
Exactly.
look
Yeah.
exhausted, and that's because we are. But
Yeah.
you do all of that together, and then it's over in a second, right? Sort of
Yeah.
life in a nutshell. That's
Right. Yeah. Except, what was it, I think the Sugar Dirt episode when you're supposed to be on that planet for like almost 3 months? No one grew facial hair.
yeah. They put in a shot of Morgan shaving with a solar powered shaver, like, just to
Okay.
sort of, you just see him
Right.
like, it's like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
looking for the thing, just to sort of give that feeling.
Show
But
that. Yeah.
that day, there was a day on Sugar Dirt where we did a 20-hour day,
Wow.
a 20-hour day,
Yeah.
and not just like, yeah, you're sitting around and then you get up and you work or whatever. A
Yeah.
20-hour day, meaning we were that's the day that Kristen and I got burned on I mean, things are exploding everywhere. The
Right.
sci-fi, like the effects people were going nuts with their gasoline, and
Yeah.
the wind shifted and burned Kristen and I on this explosion. And we just kept going.
Oh,
We
wow.
just kept
Huh.
going. That would never happen nowadays. I
No.
mean, uh, it was dangerous. It was
Yeah.
not great. And also, people are driving off the road. People are falling asleep at the wheel, because if we're doing a
Mhm.
20-hour day, the
The
crews
cruise.
there, that's a 24-hour day for them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's not cool.
Yeah. So I'd imagine they won't be doing much overtime now. It's all about the
Yeah,
budgets. Yeah.
all about the budgets. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to ask, how did the Morgan Freeman impersonation get you a job?
I had just been, uh, I hadn't been fired from SVU because I wasn't under contract, but
Right.
basically, Warren Light, who's a wonderful playwright and a really good guy, took over as showrunner from the wonderful Neil Baer.
Yeah.
And Warren didn't want to use me. So he had his own ideas about stuff. He never told me that. Like, I've never talked to Warren about this. They just stopped using me.
Yeah.
And I just knew this because suddenly the guy that's doing the things that my character did is Gilbert Gottfried. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's that.
Yeah. Right.
and so I suddenly, I basically thought my career was over at that point. I was in my late 30s, I think, and SVU had been a wonderful way to give me uh, a job that was close to where I lived, and it was the most rerun show in the world, so I was making a good living,
Right.
but extremely frustrated as an actor. That's not that role was not like the kind of role where you feel like it wasn't fulfilling in any way as an
Yeah.
actor, and often quite confusing on that show because um, it's just a time in history where SVU was a powerhouse. It was one of a handful of shows that shot in New York, so they were
Right.
very powerful. They were very busy. They were focused on a very small number of people, and it wasn't easy for everybody else. It was sort of a tough set. And so I wasn't very happy. But suddenly it was over, and I was like, well, my career hasn't been helped by being on the show at all. My opportunities are very limited.
Yeah.
Um, and up until that point too, it was like diversity was continued to be extremely problematic in Hollywood, and so I'm an older version of myself, which was never employable very much to begin with. I have a family and a mortgage, and now my career
Yeah.
is over because Gilbert Gottfried is playing the part that I played on SVU,
Right.
right? Um, so just creatively, they just put the video options on our iPhones. I got it in my head. I wanted to try to do a Morgan Freeman impersonation, and so I posted it on Facebook. And one of my best friends is the actor Daniel Day Kim, and
Okay.
so I posted this video saying in my Morgan Freeman impersonation, I'm trying to talk like Morgan Freeman, and my wife wants to kill me. And I said, hey, what'd you think of that Morgan Freeman impersonation? Because I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And Dan was like, it was okay. And I was like, well, what do you mean it was okay? I thought it was great. And he was like, well, look, you're saying I'm trying to talk like Morgan Freeman. When you're talking like Morgan Freeman, you're sort of apologizing for it. Um, don't you think you should go all the
Yeah.
way? And I was like, screw you, just
Right.
like between brothers, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I was like, challenge accepted. So that night, I went and in the middle of the night after my family went to sleep, I went
Yeah.
downstairs, I poured a whiskey, and I just sat there and tried to learn the Morgan Freeman monologue from the Shawshank
Yeah.
Redemption, and I just did it directly into the camera, posted it on Facebook. Called Dan, who lived in Hawaii at the time. I was like, check Facebook. Is that going all the way enough for you? I hung up. And then the next morning, Dan posted, he was like, this is the best Morgan Freeman impersonation I've ever seen. And I thought,
Right.
yes, that's
Nailed
it.
it.
And just,
Yeah.
between friends, creatively
Yeah.
messing around, done, Facebook, whatever. And that video, now out on Facebook, uh, a friend of mine from a different class in acting school when I'd been there
Mhm.
saw it, brought it up at a wedding in Mexico with a new friend she had made in Mexico because Shawshank Redemption, the end of it had been filmed in Mexico. And they were like,
Yeah.
hey, so many great movies have been shot here. And they're like, oh, my
Mhm.
friend, Shawshank Redemption, he just did this, showed this woman this video. And that woman was a woman named Katie O'Connell, who was a former senior vice president at NBC. And she had just been named the CEO of Goma International,
Mhm.
which was the biggest media company in Europe. And they were doing the second original program for Netflix after House of Cards. You mentioned Lilyhammer, but Lilyhammer
Yeah.
was also preceded, but Netflix bought that
Mm.
series. They didn't
Okay.
produce that series. So they were producing this series called Hemlock Grove,
Right.
and they couldn't cast this mad scientist character, just this weirdo mad scientist
Yeah.
character. And so Katie O'Connell was like, this is really weird, but that Asian Morgan Freeman guy could be the kind of weirdo we're looking for to play this part.
Yeah.
And so I got an audition for that part. It's and put it on tape with my wife, and and didn't hear anything about it for weeks. Then out of the blue, they were like, my agent was like, hey, they want to cast you in the show, and I was like, okay, well, so who do I have to meet? Nope, they just cast me right off the tape into this brand new series in
Wow.
Canada. And like you mentioned, I actually thought I was going to get fired when I showed up because I was like, they don't they've never met me. I'm
Mhm.
not like this character, like,
Right.
but then I realized, and I heard later that it was like, oh, it was unanimous. Like, it took so long because people are everywhere, Katie
Mhm.
was wherever she was in LA or whatever. And then the creators are going
Mhm.
back and forth, like to Toronto, to Pittsburgh, trying to find a place to shoot. And there's other executive
Mhm.
producers. But when they all saw the tape, they were like, "This is the guy." But it wasn't. Yes, it was the audition tape, but it was the Morgan Freeman tape. Like they were like, it was
Yeah.
the Morgan Freeman tape that got me the job. Brian
Right.
McGreevy told me that later, who's
Yeah.
the one of the writers of the show and the writer of the novel. And that sort of taught me, and that was amazing for me because my professional life was on television, was Paul Wang, who is more like me, who's like the best friend, the nice
Yeah.
guy. And then this guy on SVU who really just basically was really good at his job and able to say complicated things while walking with a thing and crawling under a desk and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. So nobody in a million years before this ever would have thought he can play a guy that was written as a 6'5" Swedish
Yeah.
autistic scientist. Like, and certainly not anyone dark, not anybody with an edge. And so, Brian really took a chance on me. Netflix, Katie, Mark Verheiden, all the people, Lee Shipman, all the people on Hemlock Grove. I mean, they didn't really know they were taking a chance on me. Like, they were like, this fucking weirdo, we found him. Awesome. And so
Yeah.
for me, I was like, oh, right. It's like the lesson is like, don't apologize for what you've been given. Like, don't think you're going to get fired. You are, in fact, you are the PhD in Johan Price. Like, you are the answer to their prayers. You are the answer to who are we going to cast for this guy? Who is this guy? And like I was saying, what you have to do in auditions, my Morgan Freeman tape was saying, I'm that guy. And they were like, yes, you are. And so when I showed up, that very quick lesson of like, I cannot come to work saying, hey, what do you think? Or like, was that any good? Or do you think
Yeah.
I have some ideas? It was like, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And if you don't like it, tell me. But I'm not going to go to you and say, I am the authority. I am the authority on this character. And that was a massive lesson for me because professional acting is a weird thing. It's like when you're acting in your backyard, you are the authority on your character. When you're the bank robber, you're the bank robber. You do the bank robber this way. And that's why it's fun and that's why it's great. Suddenly, when it's 99% unemployment and you need to make your mortgage and there's a million other people looking for work, you get in this please me mode. What do you want? What can I do? I'm going to do it I'll do whatever you want. And that's not what they're looking for. They're like, we have this problem that we really need to solve. You can't solve my problem because you're asking me what I want. I don't know what I want. You have to say, here's the answer to your problem. And they're like, oh, thank you. And then there you go. Then of course you are given the opportunity and then you have to sort of deliver on that opportunity. But I feel like I had spent my whole life trying to solve the problem of how do I get from here to there? How do I go from really believing in myself as an actor, like really thinking, I have so much to say. I have so many different ways I want to do something. I have so many skills and a passion, but how do I get somebody to pick me? And
Right.
then you learn there's a million different reasons why you're not getting picked. I mean, everyone loves to tell actors why they're not working. It's like, well, you're too short, or you're too Asian, or you're not Asian enough,
Yeah.
or you're too, this or that. And so that's an entire lifetime. Like I lived an entire lifetime of that. The whole time while people are saying, no, you're bad, or not even no, just didn't hear anything, the silence. And this was such a great opportunity because it was like confirmation. It was
Right.
like, here is a pathway for you to follow where you can cross over into a place where people will hire you. And you know what? The gifts that you thought that you had and the hard work that you've put in to make yourself better and the joy that you feel about doing this, now you have a chance to do it. Here you go. You're on the other side. And then that began a whole other set of challenges, Noel. It's like, then you actually have to do it. It's like,
Right.
well, you got it. Because with space, I was coming right out of acting school. I was cocky. It was all about the work. Nobody was, yes, they were like, it's scary out there. It's going to be tough out there. But you've been spending every day of your life for 3 years in conservatory, like doing things that you love, but also doing things that you're terrible at. Singing, scene study class where they're
Right.
choosing scenes for you that you're no good at, like just over and over. And you're just basically accumulating all of this skill and hard work and stamina. And so when the space audition came along, I was like, bleh, here it is. And they're like, we love it. And I was like, of course you love it. I'm so
Yeah.
busy. And you want me? Of course you do. And then when
Right.
space was over, I was like, there's going to be a million of those. And then, real life comes, and you're like, oh, nobody wants me. Oh, it's so much harder than I thought. Oh, I see how people are seeing me. And if I had known that before I ever became an actor, maybe I wouldn't have even done this, because it's daunting, and nobody believes in me except me and my wife and my family.
Right.
And uh that's sobering. And so anyway, so all of that is to say, you just asked a question about Morgan Freeman, but Morgan Freeman became like the Morgan Freeman became the tiny little hammer that Tim Robbins used to dig out of that frickin'
Yeah.
prison and crawl through the shit
Right.
to get out to the promised land. And that's basically Morgan Freeman delivered me
Mm.
into a place where suddenly, I mean, look, some people love Hemlock Grove, some people hate Hemlock Grove. Uh, it introduced me to some great colleagues and friends. It gave me a great acting opportunity, one of my favorite jobs I've
Yeah.
ever done. And it also introduced me to the world as the character actor who could play so many different things and who could play dark things. And that led to everything else in my life. It led to so much opportunity for me.
Right.
That changed my professional life.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we talk about the darker roles, did you have a backup plan in case you weren't getting the calls, or it was just acting or bust?
Acting or bust. I
Okay.
mean, it's a weird paradox, because I'm a very uh, methodical planner, and I am um, when it comes to how I navigate my family life, I'm quite conservative. Like, I want to make sure that things are taken care of, like
Right.
a high floor above all else. But there's certain things that happen where I do things where I look back on it, I'm like, that seems out of character for you, like because I went to an Ivy League school. You know what I mean? It's like I'm the
Mhm.
son of physicians. Like, it's sort of like there were opportunities for me to do things that I could be good at that would be much safer. But part of my personality is
Mhm.
that it's historic. Like, I am very careful, typically, very thoughtful and planning, typically. But if I really see something that I'm crazy about, I'll
Yeah.
throw it all up in the air. And that's what I did with acting. Just went for it
Yeah.
100%.
Right. Were your parents supportive about your
They
choices?
were, and
That's
I
good.
don't think I could have done it without their support. And I was
Okay.
surprised by their support, but they supported me emotionally, super importantly, and financially. They sent me to acting school. When I graduated from acting school, I had
Yeah.
$0 in debt. And
That's great.
it is, I mean, look, so many successful professional actors, so many of us could only have done it because we were privileged. I mean, so many of us. I mean, we've had financial help, we've had family help, we've had um, nobody can really do it on their own. Sometimes there's people who succeed without so many of these other things,
Yeah.
and but I mean, it's like, look at all of these great actors from the UK, for example, like this generation, maybe actors between maybe the ages of 25 and 50 right now. And then take a look at their biographies and see where they're from, where they went to school, who their families are.
Yeah.
If you can afford, if you have support and you do not have to take 3 jobs and then go audition,
Right.
your odds go up. If, and I think that we don't really talk about this all that much, but I think that it's really hard to not succeed without having help. Like, whether it's like financial help, emotional help because somebody in the business, like all of
Yeah.
that stuff. It's it's a big thing. Like, acting is so hard. It's such an impossibility that it requires fortification.
Yeah. And especially like if you want to do something and your parents don't support you, I feel like you're gonna just do it anyway. So you might as well just have the support and support your children. Just to show them that, you care and give them the confidence. It may not be financially, but at least you can give them the confidence and the support emotionally.
Well, the biggest thing my mother said to me on the night that I told her on the phone that I was going to be a theater major.
Right.
uh, I did not anticipate this conversation going well. I was not looking forward to having this conversation.
Yeah.
And her response to me that night was, uh, when your father and I came to this country, immigrants, our dream was to give you an education and then for you to do what you love the most. If this is what you love, your father and I support you, and we will do whatever we can to help you. That took me completely by surprise.
Right.
And it is, I mean, one, not only did it make me feel so loved, it made me sort of think, I will endure whatever it takes to make everything that you've done to give this opportunity to me
Right.
happen. I will do whatever it takes. I will put it all on the line, and I want to make you proud. And it's also changed the way that I parent, like
Yeah.
that, because we have so many ideas of what we want for our children and how to keep them safe and what we think is best for them. But at the end of the day, like, we have to love them and then and hopefully create a situation where they are safe and loved, know that they are, and then they can find and do something and make their own mistakes and pursue it. And then we have to support them, and that's much easier said than done. But
Yeah.
my parents said it and they did it. And so I just feel super lucky for that, because I'm not sitting here
Yeah.
having this conversation with you otherwise.
Right. No, that's fantastic. Sounds like you have great parents.
They
I
were
always
great.
say to my oldest son, who I have contacts in what he's going to end up doing. I can help you get your foot in the door, but it's your responsibility and your job to get the rest of yourself in the door.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it must have been terrifying for my parents to think, you're doing something that is so risky,
Yeah.
and we don't know anything about this professionally. Like, we
Right.
can't help you. Like, you're really going out there and doing something that we don't have any conception of. And they did an amazing job of not letting me feel any of that, because as a parent now, I think about it and I think they must have been so worried. They never really let on about it. You know what I mean? Like, uh, I think a gift is only a gift if you don't, like, that kind of a gift, if you don't realize that it's a gift.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
if they're showing me that they're giving me this, then they're not really giving it to me. Like, they really gave me the freedom. They really gave me the support.
Yeah.
And that's something I aspire to do a better job at every day. Like, sometimes I'm successful, oftentimes I'm not, then I try again.
Right. Yeah. Now you mentioned kind of going into the more darker, elaborate characters, after Dr. Price, how many languages did Dr. Price speak?
I mean, in real life, not. I mean, we pretended.
Yeah.
The conceit was he spoke every language. Like, that
Right.
was
Okay. Yeah.
which was the result of just play. Like, the
Yeah.
result of the writers at the time watching the dailies, and then having an idea, and then doing it, and then them picking up that idea, and then being like, well, you could do that. How about this? I mean, there was a period in that season where it it felt like, it literally was, actually, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And then the writers would eagerly watch and then say, oh, yeah, well, can you do this? And then I would say, well, if you give me a couple of days and you get me a coach.
Yeah.
Like, it was stuff like, first, it was the languages. It was like Greek, French, German, all these different things. So they would add these languages in. And
Yeah.
so then I would get a coach to, like, teach me for the day. Then it was like, play the drums. So then I
Yeah.
had some guy from a great band teach me for a day. And it's so fun. And also, when you stop to think about it, so terrifying, because, you're going to be on a show. Like, I was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner,
Okay.
and as the guest of my friend Dan, and we were there, and the stars of the entire evening, more than the politicians, was Kevin Spacey from House of Cards, because
Yeah.
that was in its heyday.
Right.
All of the senators and Congress people there were so excited to meet their Hollywood counterparts.
Yeah.
And so there was all that going on. And I remember I was walking with uh, Ted Sarandos, like after the thing. I
Yeah.
bumped into him. I wasn't supposed to be there, but there I was. There's Ted Sarandos. And he
Yeah.
was like, oh, hello. And I was like, oh, hello, Mr. Sarandos. And he was
Yeah.
like, your show is killing. And he was like, everyone's fawning over House of Cards. Your numbers
Yeah.
are killing their numbers.
Oh wow.
And I thought to myself, the critical disaster is pulling in the huge numbers, right? Well,
Yeah.
because Famke is amazing and Bill Skarsgård's amazing, and they're all
Yeah.
and it's blood and horror
Right, of
and stuff.
course. Werewolves.
But you just sort of think we have a huge audience. Like it's like, and I'm supposed to be playing the drums, and I don't know how to play the drums, so it's just like it's such
Yeah.
a great it was just a great experience because again it's like more lessons, it's like
Yeah.
more opportunity of like you're working without a safety net, and everything that we're talking about, our whole life is about you practice working in extreme situations, and
Yeah.
you learn to sort of embrace it as a part of the life, like you embrace 99% employment, you embrace going to Australia, you
Yeah.
embrace like all that stuff. So
Yeah. Now with Man in the High Castle, which one of my favorite shows, absolutely loved it. Your character
thanks.
was not in the book by Philip K. Dick. It
Right.
was written for the show. How much of the accent that Inspector Kido did you have to work on? Did it help you did the one person play, Hold These Truths
It
to
did
have it?
help. It's all on my like Instagram or something the other day, something came up where they had a clip of uh Kido in season one. If you watch a clip of season one
Yeah.
and you watch of me and you watch at the end, I sound completely different. Like
Yeah.
the sound of my character is totally different.
Right.
And um that's like, the actor Joel had an idea about the character Kido, which was I was going to create a sound for Kido that um empowered the character. Like I wanted to
Yeah.
create, because Kido does not speak with like a stereotypical Japanese accent speaking English.
Yeah.
And this all like I did a film years ago called Personal Velocity, which is one of my
Right.
favorite experiences I've ever had,
Yeah.
directed by Rebecca Miller, who's an amazing artist and director. The character that I was playing was half Laotian and half white American, like the son of a GI and a Laotian refugee.
Right.
So we had a meeting about it. It was an independent film. All the work was going to shoot. My scenes were going to shoot in one day. And so we had a meeting beforehand, and she was like, "What do you think his sound is like?" And I was like, "That's such a great question. I have no idea. I don't even know what a Laotian accent is like. And so I guess I have a lot of work to do. How do you suggest I go about this?" And she said, "Well, my husband is an actor, and he does a lot of dialect work." Now I happen to know that her husband is Daniel Day-Lewis, and so I was like, "Oh, really? Well, I'd be
Yeah.
very interested to hear what he has to say about it." And she said, "Well,
Right.
I'll ask him, and I'll let you know." And I said, "Great." And so she didn't. And then we had another meeting, and she said, "Oh, I asked my husband, and he said he doesn't really do anything special for it. So good luck." And I was like, "Okay, great." Then she calls me back and she says, "I'm at the zoo with Daniel." Now she's, and he says, uh, he has a very specific process, and if you'd like, he'd love to share it with you. And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So she's
Yeah.
like, "Why don't you come over, on Sunday
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah." So I show up at their apartment on a Sunday in Soho somewhere, and they're lying on the floor
Yeah.
in a black sweatshirt and sweatpants, reading the New York Times, is Sir Daniel Day-Lewis,
Yeah.
and stands up, super unpretentious, super kind and easy, and he very, very politely says, "I'm so excited about this Rebecca's project, and what a great part for you, and if it would be of help, I would love to share some ideas that I've worked on some characters that speak in dialects." I'm like, "Yes, of course,"
Right.
and of course I would love to hear it. And he says, "Well, recently I was just doing this thing, Gangs of New York, and I did all this research, and basically, amazing afternoon spent. But the gist of it," he said, was he listened to a bunch of different people, and then he picked what sounds he felt like would work for his character based on given circumstance, geography, his character, but everything that could make sense. Then he would create the sound. And the key part was he would then make tapes. After listening to all these tapes, he would make tapes of himself talking. And by the end, he's just listening to himself. So he's listening to the sound, and that, so no matter what, he's like, because you're always going to be trying to please and match the person talking. So by the end, you're trying to match yourself, so that no matter what you say or do, you're teaching yourself, I'm right no matter what I say. So then I did a mini version of that, like a much more mini version. I met with 6 different people who were native Japanese speakers who learned English as a second language. And within the first 3 people, I learned right away, they're all completely different. The first person I met could say their R's and L's perfectly. And I was like, and so one of the things that taught me was the defining characteristic, by and large, of an Asian dialect in English across the board, Chinese, like dialects in Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, like you name it. The thing that people like to make the official dialect are, how can this person not make the right sounds?
Right.
So the idea is, oh yeah, like my Chinese accent is, and people laugh. So people laugh at an Asian person speaking the language. And so we grow up seeing that, and we grow up disempowered, and we grow up thinking, oh yeah, we're less than. And I realized, hearing these people, I was like, that's bullshit. Like, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Why are we brought up thinking that? So then I thought Kido is terrifying. Kido is powerful. And so I'm going to create a sound. He cannot be disempowered. He will not be disempowered. I'm going to find a sound that empowers him. And so one of the great, and that's a process that, again, too, because of my own process over time, because I was coming to this process later in my acting life, I felt empowered enough where I worked on it the entire series. So you would think, well, I have to be Kido on episode 1 and I have to keep it exactly the same. I continued to work on it. And so, which is why when you watch season 1 and season 4, it's different. And I'm sort of proud of that. But what I'm the most proud of is that everybody wants to sound like Inspector Kido. That I get people coming up to me and saying, will you please say this? Or, oh my God. And then they say the thing. And they don't say it in a way that is funny. Like, they don't say it in a way that is mocking. They say it in a way that is like, I want to be like this guy. I want to sound like this person because I think this person is cool. And my primary focus is not, of course, to create someone that is cool or that you want to be like. My primary my primary responsibility is to create this character in service of the show, which was my priority. But my own separate agenda as Joel was, I want to create a character who is, he is Asian. That character is Asian. I'm not an Asian person happening to play this character. Inspector Takeshi Kido is Japanese, and he embodies so many different stereotypes potentially. And I'm going to embrace that, and I am going to create what I can do to create an actual real character. And so you might think he's stereotypical at first, but I hope that by the end of it, he won't be that to you. And the language was the primary component for that. And something, it's maybe like the thing that I'm most proud of, like on that whole series, is using his language, using and empowering him through language, because he doesn't speak much. Like, the funny thing is, like, I'm always amazed when people think that Kido is in the show. He's in the show much less than you think he is, and he says much less than you think he does. So I feel like his impact was much bigger than his actual appearances.
Yeah. There's a commanding presence when you saw him on screen.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you if you felt you accomplished what you sought out to do with the dialect, and it sounds like you did, but I'll ask a different question. Was there any backlash that you received as a result of it?
No, I mean, not directly to me. I expected to hear a lot of backlash, but I also sort of wanted to be available to it, because you're walking a tightrope. Like, it's when Kido was introduced in the pilot, the name that he's introduced by is man with round glasses. Like it's not, and
Yeah.
man with round glasses is a stereotype, like, and that's, and it was literally like, here's a stereotype that we're having. And so, and oh, actually, I have read things where people are like, oh my God, it's so
Yeah.
offensive. Like, he's so offensive. He's so offensive. And I sort of think, okay, well, that's totally valid. It doesn't bother me, but I think, how much of it did you watch?
Right.
Like, and if you watch enough of it, um, and you still feel that way, I can stand by it and say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm proud of the work that I did. The
Yeah.
thing that I'm not proud of about that series is, I speak Japanese in it, and my Japanese is terrible. It's not good enough. It
Right.
should be, when he speaks it, ideally it would be, oh, I had no idea Joel was
Yeah.
fluent in Japanese, but there just wasn't the time. I mean,
Right.
had I known that this was going to happen, I would have immersed myself season one. But this show was picked up season to season to season and very late. And so
Right.
if I could do it all over again, I would have done it anyway. I would have paid for it myself. I would have
Yeah.
gone, because the role was that important to me. And once the show was picked up, like, everybody involved with the show supported my character 100%.
Yeah.
Like Richard Hughes, one of the producers, and Aaron Smith, another producer, they went out of their way. They made all kinds of financial investments in
Yeah.
allowing me to train for the character. But you need months to train, like,
Right.
just to get by. Like,
Yeah.
you need, I mean, that's not an easy language, to speak as a native person. I mean, I don't even know if I would have been able to pull it off had I had all that time. I think I would have had a pretty good opportunity
Yeah.
to, though. And so that's my big regret. And
Right.
that's something that I wear. Like, if someone is like, "Oh yeah, I loved him. His Japanese, I'm Japanese though. His Japanese was
Yeah.
awful." Then I sort of think,
Yeah.
"You're right.
Right.
You're right. That's on
Yeah.
me." Like, like I didn't do it.
Yeah. It's a lot different than Dr. Price, where he just fluent in a bunch of different languages, or you're just speaking German, but you're not German, as opposed to
And the
pretending to
nature
be
and
an
the
actor.
nature of
Yeah.
that show is it's fantastical. It's this elevated horror thing
Right.
where, like, um, even if you're like, ah, that's not the greatest, there's a playfulness in the DNA of the show.
Right.
Because do you really believe this character speaks every language? Like there's sort of
Exactly.
like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's the kind of world it is. Fun,
Yeah.
like, and that's sort of the world.
Yeah.
Man in the High Castle, it's like alternate reality. Everything should be exactly
Exactly.
real. Like,
Right.
you should feel terrified because it feels exactly like,
Yeah.
it feels like people are really getting killed here, And so anything that destroys that is a failure.
Yeah.
And that's something that I regret.
Right. And a couple months ago, unfortunately, we lost Carrie. And I know you were like really close with him. Just talk about your friendship with him.
uh, Carrie's one of a kind. And I have a lot of respect for him, and hard fought respect, because we worked very closely
Yeah.
together over that period of time, and we're not similar humans, and
Right.
we're also products of different times and different places. Carrie grew up in the South, as like the only person of Japanese ancestry
Yeah.
where he grew up, and um, I've touched a little bit on, I've hinted a little bit at the challenges that I faced as an Asian American actor growing up when I did. Well,
Right.
it was so much worse for Carrie, and
Yeah.
Carrie succeeded at such a tremendously high level for so long, despite that, and often playing stereotypes when there was no other alternative, and yet also somehow
Yeah.
managing to bring something to it. It was really easy for someone like me before meeting Carrie to be judgmental of parts that he played, or
Right.
of ways that things happened, or you know to be critical in the way younger people can often be critical of the generation just prior to them. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
often was. And so it was a great experience for me to meet him and to experience firsthand his incredible talent, um, to engage with the differences that we had generationally, culturally, in some ways, aesthetically, and find the respect for one another to create something together. I loved him like he was an older brother, um, and I miss him. And I am so grateful for the time that we had together. I
Yeah.
think he created something. I think he was, and I actually know this. I think he was the
Yeah.
most beloved character on our show by a significant amount.
Oh,
And I say that
yeah, without
knowing that
question.
Rufus, Smith, is also an amazing character
Yeah.
and very beloved. And if you just looked at social media or whatever, you would think, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely Smith. But it was Carrie. Carrie was the most
Yeah.
beloved character on that show.
Yeah. I Rufus is fantastic. Yeah.
Incredible,
Dark City,
incredible,
love that movie.
wonderful actor, great
Yeah.
guy, like
Yeah.
great, 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 great.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you a fan of the how the show ended?
I was actually. I guess, I guess to those who had a problem with it, which I
Yeah.
think, of course, great, valid. It's wonderful to see people have strong
Right.
reactions at
Yeah,
all.
exactly.
Um, the only thing I would say is that we had 2 seasons of material that were pitched, and we were given 1 season to do it.
Okay.
And so that's why, that's a big reason why the season is the way that it is.
Right.
Uh, I don't say that as an excuse because I think the way that it is, I love the way that it is. I mean, one of the things, the show is very ponderous and thoughtful, and suddenly in season 4, it's less so. Suddenly, like it's
Yeah.
quite active. Lots of things are
Yeah.
happening really quickly, and for I think
Yeah.
a lot of people that gear shift is unsettling and not to their liking. It's like I like the ponderousness and the thoughtfulness of the show. I get it, but we had a lot of ground to cover if we wanted to tell the story we wanted to tell, and
Yeah.
we and certain like C, D, and E, we had to
Yeah.
go from like B to F, because we didn't have
Right.
time. And
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it wasn't exclusive to your show. I mean, like look at a show like Game of Thrones did the same thing or like Lost, they're at a certain pace and all of a sudden you jump ahead so quickly, episode by episode. So it wasn't exclusive to your show.
it's hard to make things, and
Yeah.
when people happen to love something that you make, you can't ever take it for granted, and it's such a gift. But then there's an ownership that
Right.
happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, uh, which is also a beautiful thing. It's like, that's my show. Man in the High Castle, that's my show.
Yeah.
I love that some people feel that way.
Right.
And then sometimes people are heartbroken by that. They're like, oh
Yeah.
man, you killed my show. You ruined my
Yeah.
show. This show is like,
Right.
what is the internet word that I find so distasteful when they say this is trash? Like when they
Yeah.
say that, because it's such a dismissive, judgmental thing to say. And to that person, I want to say, have you ever made anything? Like
Yeah.
have you ever made anything? Like, and also, how about you make something that you work on for years and years and years? Like, do you have any idea what goes into the making of this? You don't have to like it. And in fact, you
Right.
can say, I really hated it. That's
Yeah.
fine. But to
Just leave it at
call it
that.
to call it trash,
Yeah.
that's like it's lazy. It's lazy with your language. It's meant to be hurtful. But at the same time, I want to say, you might be the kind of person that's never really worked hard in a way. Like, I don't know if you've ever worked very hard when you use that word.
Yeah. And plus, everyone is big when they're in front of a keyboard because
Sure.
no one's going to say that to your face. Say this show is trash.
Not
This movie,
yet.
not yet. And hopefully that'll never happen. But you know, but yeah. A show I really enjoyed, but it's impossible to find is 100 Center Street.
Oh
That was
man,
yeah on A&E. Really enjoyed that show.
it's funny that you say that because I'm just I was going through my closet the other day where we have all these DVDs, and
Yeah.
we have a DVD of 100 Center Street. Yeah, that
Oh
was
wow.
great. That's actually how I got to know Warren Light, who took
Okay.
over as the showrunner of SVU. He
Okay.
was a writer on that, and it was a lot of fun, that show. That's the first show that I remember where they were like, oh yeah, so they want you to do the show 100 Center Street. It's on A&E,
Yeah.
and people were like, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what? Like, there's a show that's on not one of these 3 or 4 channels, and what channel is it on? It's so funny. Like, it was such a precursor to so
Yeah.
many things.
Yeah. I always feel like the first show on those networks never really make it. They might be great, but they're like kind of like guinea pigs to let's just see if, a show
Yeah.
can make it but yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was,
Oh, thanks.
Sidney Lumet, right? He created that
Sidney
show.
Lumet, Alan Arkin was on it.
Yeah, Bobby Cannavale, right?
Bonnie Cannavale was on it.
Yeah,
Sarita Chowdhury is in it.
yeah,
Just wonderful actors. And also, like, having someone like Sidney Lumet and someone like Alan Arkin, who are just both such wonderful actors
yeah,
and actor and director who are sort of at the top of their
yeah,
fields. It was so great to watch them be practical and irreverent when necessary, which is to say, Sidney Lumet's biggest priority for the show was to get the crew home for dinner.
hmm,
That was the priority. And um, it was great to see someone who's created such brilliant work embody an attitude that wasn't just about the work. It was very freeing. You know, it was sort of like, I give you permission to talk about your family in a way that is important at work.
right,
It's okay if your family is more important to you than the job. Um, it's okay if this isn't the best take. In fact, there was actually a mistake here, but we're moving on because we need to make the day. Like,
hmm,
just to see that as a as an additional way of thinking, because it's so competitive and it's so we create this sort of ethos that it has to be perfect and we all have to be 100% on board, and it's useful, that attitude, but sometimes it's like, we're not seeing our families, you know, we're not
right,
seeing them, and we're traveling very far away to be away from the people that we care about for long periods of time. I mean, and yes, you're doing a TV show, boohoo, but you know,
yeah,
it was just nice to see the people that you admire the most there be the most human.
that's great. Yeah, I my apologies. I haven't watched Daryl Dixon yet because my
Oh, it's
wife and I
okay.
watch, certain shows, and I can't watch stuff with her because either she'll fall asleep, and then I feel bad watching, and so I'm
Yeah.
like still in season one, so I haven't. Your character hasn't come up yet, so I kind of know what happens, unfortunately. But I'm looking forward to seeing his debut. So I mean, but yeah, because it's interesting how he ended up in France, Daryl Dixon.
You know, like,
You know?
where there's a will, there's a way,
Yeah.
and I think Norman wanted to be in France. So
No, no worries. Yeah, so you write it in somehow. Yeah.
yeah,
How fun was it to voice a character in a cartoon, General Lang in My Adventures with Superman?
it was so much fun. Noel, I mean, first of all, it helps when, I mean, the people that were doing it were like kids in a candy store. Like,
Yeah.
they were so good at what they did, but they were so excited about everything that they
Yeah.
did. Like, um, that's really fun to show up. Like, you're like, how can I help? And they're like, oh my God, yes,
Yeah.
this is fantastic. And uh, it's a good reminder, you know, it's like, what we do is hard, but you shouldn't forget that it's fun. And so these guys were getting to do what they really loved. And so that was fun. And then it's sort of like, you sort of get to be, because I haven't done many movies and I certainly haven't been in any
Yeah.
big blockbuster movies. And
Right.
so it was like getting to be in a big blockbuster movie while being able to wear sweatpants and show up not having
Exactly.
showered. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you're seeing all the stuff, or you're seeing like the temporary pictures they have in place for the explosions that are going to happen, or the aliens that are going to come in, or you running for your life and saving your daughter or whatever. And you can hear it and you can see the ideas and your imagination is unlocked, but you're in your pajamas, you know, it's
Yeah.
great.
Right. And the voiceover world, I feel, is like a tight fraternity, and it's kind of hard to get into. Do you feel like that's something you do want to do in the future or try to continue
I
doing?
would love to do more of it. You know, I would love to do more audiobooks. I would love to do more. I read news for Apple News Plus, and
Okay.
that's so fun. Like, I just think that, you know, like talking about Kido's voice, I'm really excited and interested in vocal work. And
Right.
so it's like you get to do a deep dive in any one of these different disciplines, like being a voice actor, being an audiobook interpreter. Just the amounts that I've done, it's like, it's fun, and then you realize, wow, there's so much more to go. Like, there's so many ways to be better. It's so hard in some ways. Like, the things that seem easy, the easiest seeming things are the hardest seeming things, like
Mhm.
acting too. But it's
Right.
like, it just seems like, oh wow, there's, you know, uh, there's so much to explore still. It helps you feel young, like there's so
Yeah.
many things that you could get better at.
Right. And then plus, like, your voice is like the last thing to go. You may be 80 years old, but your voice will still sound young.
I loved what Michael said in your podcast today. I
Yeah.
caught that. He was like, your voice is the last thing to change. And he has such a beautiful voice, like it
Yeah.
was great to hear him. And just when he would just drop in for a second, like just touch in for a second,
Yeah.
like who was the director that he credited so much? I forget. It was it Terry Gilliam? No, who was it
No,
that he worked with so much?
Miller. What was his first name? Alan Miller, I believe.
Oh, Alan Parker.
Alan Parker. Alan Parker. Yeah, yeah.
Just the way he would just drop in
Yeah.
and just touch those, like
Right.
just tinkle those notes,
Yeah.
become that guy for a second. It was really wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always thought he was British until, I mean, I knew it before I did the interview, but like for years, I always thought he was a British actor.
I mean,
And a lot of people did too. So
sounds it. Yeah.
yeah.
He trained there. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But Joe, I can talk to you all day. This was fantastic. I really appreciate your
pleasure.
time.
Yeah.
And I'll catch up with Daryl Dixon. I know you have other things going on. Where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram, my name at Joel De La Fuente. I have a Facebook out there too, but really the thing I've been updating the most is the thing that I touch base with is my Instagram. And yeah, so it's a pleasure talking to you too. It really does make a difference too when people want to talk and they are aware of the things that you've done or are curious about those things. It makes for a much livelier conversation. So thanks for that.
And a special thanks to Joel for joining me today. I can talk to him all day. He's fantastic. If you have a guest suggestion, hit me up on X, formerly Twitter, at @TheFirstNoel19. Be sure to like the page Living My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Shows on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, basically wherever you find a podcast. A new episode will come out soon. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then.